I are just driving around the Salt Lake area, doing some exploring. And I'm embarrassed to say, I was going to come out wrong. I was going to say I'm embarrassed to say I've lived in Utah for 22 years. I guess that's kind of true. Not totally, but what I meant to say was, in all the years that I have lived in Utah, I have never come to the state capital. That kills me. I know my kids have on field trips and stuff, but we came up this hill and the avenues and boom, there it was, so we had to stop. And as I've been sitting here glancing over the Salt Lake Valley, I see the Salt Lake Temple off in the distance. And it just made me think of a time, there was a wedding. And in the Mormon church, if someone gets married in the temple, only those who have a current temple recommend can go into the temple to see the wedding or to perform the other ordinances that go on in the temple. I didn't have a temple recommend. I have to answer a certain set of questions in order to be given a recommend. And one of those questions naturally asks if you believe in basically the tenets of the church, if Joseph Smith was a prophet, and if the Book of Mormon is true. Couldn't answer yes to those questions. Couldn't get a temple recommend to go see, it wasn't my immediate family, but a family member nonetheless get married. I decided to go anyway and just be on the temple grounds. And it actually wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. I just kind of just smiled and, was happy to be with family. And I sat there and thought about the day I got married back in 1990. When my dad, who has since passed away, and my grandparents stood outside the temple crying because they couldn't see their daughter get married. And of course I was 20. I didn't really think much about it because I was on the path. I was doing what I was supposed to do. I was getting married in the temple at the ripe old age of 20. And later found out that my dad stood outside the temple with tears streaming down his face because he couldn't see his daughter get married. And that just kind of pisses me off. For a church to be so pro-family, it's just so sad that something like that happens. And it's just kind of a tender thing for me because my boys are still being raised in the church, and if that continues and they stay on that path, one day they will probably get married in the temple. And guess who doesn't get to be there? And I know that my family and friends say, well, that was a choice I made. But what kills me is it wasn't an easy choice. But I made that choice fully aware of consequences like that. The decision to leave the church was not an easy one. And it wasn't for any silly reason. But today as I sit here and I look over this valley, that memory comes back pretty strongly. I wasn't expecting that. And it's just kind of a hard realization to come to. To know that something I loved so dearly, with every ounce of my being, I believed it to be true, will probably continue to cause these feelings to come up from time to time. Even though I'm happy and feel free in spirit more than I ever have in my entire life, actually, it doesn't mean that the reality and the consequences of leaving my faith of yesterday, that it doesn't still hurt pretty bad sometimes.